It's week 10 of the NFL season, and here are my predictions for this week. But first, how did I do last week? In week 9, in wins and losses, I went 9 and 5, and against the spread, I went 5 and 9. And in week 9, it was a big upset week with 6 upset wins. And before getting into the video, please make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future uploads. Kicking off the week on Thursday Night Football, we have the 2 and 6 Raiders versus the 7 and 2 Broncos. The Raiders are coming off a 30-29 loss against the Jaguars in overtime. During overtime, Trevor Lawrence had a 1-yard rushing touchdown that put the Jaguars up 30-23. Then with 16 seconds left on the clock, Geno Smith hit Brock Bowers for a 2-yard touchdown, but they went for 2 to win the game, and it was no good, so they ended up losing by 1. So overall, Geno Smith went 29 of 39, 284 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. Then Ashton Jeanty had 42 yards rushing and 5 receptions for 47 yards and a touchdown. And in Brock Bowers' return from his injury, he had 12 receptions, 127 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Then for the Broncos, they're coming off a 18-15 win against the Texans, and this was a very close defensive game, and the Broncos went into the fourth quarter down 15-7. But with 12:28 left, Bo Nix hit RJ Harvey for a 27-yard touchdown, and they got the 2-point conversion. Then to end the game, Will Lutz hit a 34-yard walk-off field goal. And overall, Bo Nix went 18 of 37, 173 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception, while also having 36 rushing yards. Then J.K. Dobbins led the team with 61 yards rushing, and RJ Harvey had 5 receptions, 51 yards, and a touchdown. And on defense, they had 4 sacks and held the Texans to just 268 yards. The Broncos are one of the hottest teams in the NFL. They've won 6 games in a row, and I have them winning and covering the 8.5 point spread. Then moving over to Sunday, we have another early morning game, and this week it is in Berlin, Germany, with the 3 and 5 Falcons versus the 7 and 2 Colts. The Falcons are coming off a very close loss, 24-23 against the Patriots, and in that game, Michael Penix went 22 of 37, 221 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Then for some reason, they only gave the ball to Bijan Robinson 12 times, and he had 46 yards. Then he had 8 receptions for 50 yards. Then their leading receiver was Drake London with 9 receptions, 118 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And on defense, they had 6 sacks and an interception. Then for the Colts, they're coming off a 27-20 loss against the Steelers, and this was by far the Colts and Daniel Jones' worst game this season. Daniel Jones went 31 of 50, 342 yards, a touchdown, and 3 interceptions, and he also fumbled 3 times, and 2 of them were turnovers. So overall, Daniel Jones had 5 turnovers himself, and the team as a whole had 6, but he also had a rushing touchdown. Then Jonathan Taylor didn't have a good game at all, having just 45 yards rushing, but both Michael Pittman Jr. and Alec Pierce had 115 yards each. And on defense, Laiatu Latu had 2.5 sacks. Overall, I think this is going to be a pretty close game. The Falcons have been really up and down, and the Colts have been good all season long for the most part. But the Colts went out and made a blockbuster trade for Sauce Gardner, and they gave up 2 first-round picks and wide receiver A.D. Mitchell. So they're going all in this season, and their defense is looking a lot better now. So I think the Colts are going to bounce back this week and win, but I have the Falcons covering the 5.5 point spread. Then we have the 2 and 6 Browns versus the 1 and 7 Jets. Both of these teams are coming off their bye weeks. For the Browns, in their last game in week 8, they lost 32-13 against the Patriots, and in that game, Myles Garrett had 5 sacks, but they still lost by 19. And then for the Jets, they got their first win of the season, 39-38 against the Bengals, and they entered the fourth quarter down 31-16 and ended up having 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. So they took a lot of momentum into the bye week, but they did trade away Sauce Gardner to the Colts for 2 first-round picks and A.D. Mitchell. Then they traded away Quentin Williams to the Cowboys for a first-round pick, a second-round pick, and Mozzie Smith. So right now they're in full rebuild mode, and their defense just got a lot worse. But now for the Browns, they're having their offensive coordinator Tommy Rees call plays for the rest of the season, and they're going to be getting their number 2 wide receiver Cedric Tillman back from the IR this week. And for the Jets, Garrett Wilson is still questionable with his knee injury, but he he is returning to practice. I think the difference in this game is going to be the Browns defense, so I have the Browns winning. Then the 5-3 Jaguars versus the 3-5 Texans. In the Jaguars win over the Raiders, Trevor Lawrence went 23 of 34, 220 yards and an interception, while also having 2 rushing touchdowns. Then Travis Etienne Jr. had 84 yards rushing, and Parker Washington led the team with 8 receptions and 90 yards. But earlier last week, they did put Travis Hunter on the IR with a knee injury, so he's going to miss at least 4 games. Then for the Texans, in their loss against the Broncos, CJ Stroud left the game early with a concussion, and Davis Mills went 17 of 30 with 137 yards. Then their run game was pretty bad in this one, having 28 carries for 77 yards and just 2.8 yards per carry as a team. Then Dalton Schultz led them with 6 receptions and 77 yards. So CJ Stroud is still in concussion protocol and is questionable this week, and I think that's going to be the deciding factor, but I still have the Texans winning and covering the 1.5 point spread. Then we have the 6-2 Bills versus the 2-7 Dolphins. The Bills are coming off a very big win, 28-21 against the Chiefs, and in that game, Josh Allen went 23 of 26, 273 yards and a touchdown, while also having 2 rushing touchdowns, and James Cook had 114 rushing yards, and Dalton Kincaid had 6 receptions, 101 yards and a touchdown. And on defense, they had 3 sacks, and their rookie cornerback, Maxwell Harrison, had his first career interception. And the Bills held Patrick Mahomes to under a 50% completion percentage for the first time in his career. Then for the Dolphins, they're coming off a 28-6 loss against the Ravens on Thursday Night Football, and Tua went 25 of 40, 261 yards and an interception. Then Devon Achane had 67 yards rushing, and Jalen Waddle had 6 receptions and 82 yards. And it'll be interesting to see if they trade away any players at the trade deadline, which is this Tuesday. So I have the Bills winning and covering the 8.5 point spread. Then we have the 7-2 Patriots versus the 6-2 Buccaneers. In the Patriots win over the Falcons, Drake May went 19 of 29 with 259 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception, and he was sacked 6 times. Then Travion Henderson had 55 yards rushing, and Demario Douglas had 4 receptions, 100 yards, and a touchdown. Then for the Buccaneers, they're coming off their bye week, and in their last game in week 8, they beat the Saints 23-3. And this is one of the best games of the week, and both of these teams are very hot. The Patriots are entering this game on a 6-game winning streak, and they have the best rush defense in the NFL. They're allowing just 75 rushing yards a game, while also only allowing 18.8 points per game, which is tied for 5th. But the Buccaneers are expecting Bucky Irving back this week, and both Baker Mayfield and Drake May are in the MVP race, so this should be a very good game, and I think it's going to be very close as well. But I have the Patriots winning. Then we have the 2-7 Giants versus the 5-3 Bears. The Giants are coming off a 34-24 loss against the 49ers, and Jackson Dart went 24 of 33, 191 yards and 2 touchdowns, and led the team with 56 rushing yards and a touchdown. Then Darius Slayton had 5 receptions and 62 yards. And on defense, Brian Burns got another sack, and he's already up to 11 on the season. Then for the Bears, they're coming off a win in a shootout versus the Bengals, where they won 47-42. And in the 4th quarter, with under 2 minutes to go, the Bears were up 41-27. Then Joe Flacco hit Noah Fant for a 23-yard touchdown pass and got the 2-point conversion. Then they got the onside kick, and they went down and got another touchdown and the 2-point conversion to take a 1-point lead, 42-41. But on the next drive for the Bears, Caleb Williams hit Colston Loveland for a 58-yard touchdown, and that took a 5-point lead, and the Bears ended up winning. So overall, Caleb Williams went 20 of 34, 280 yards and 3 touchdowns. Then their rookie running back Kyle Monangai had 176 yards rushing, and their rookie tight end Colston Loveland had 6 receptions, 118 yards and 2 touchdowns. And on defense, they had 3 sacks and 2 interceptions. Overall, the Bears are a really hot team. They've won 4 out of their last 5 games, so I have the Bears winning and covering the 3.5 point spread. Then we have the 3-5 Ravens versus the 4-4 Vikings. In the Ravens win against the Dolphins, Lamar Jackson went 18 of 23, 204 yards and 4 touchdowns. Then Derrick Henry had 119 yards rushing, and Zay Flowers had 5 receptions for 64 yards. Then on defense, they had 2 sacks, an interception, and held the Dolphins to just 6 points. Then for the Vikings, they're coming off a 27-24 win against the Lions, where JJ McCarthy started, and he didn't have a great game, but still did enough to win. He went 14 of 25, 143 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception, and was sacked 5 times, but he also had a rushing touchdown. Then Aaron Jones had 78 yards rushing, but he did get injured in this game and is questionable this week. And Jordan Addison led the team in receiving with 2 receptions and 48 yards. And on defense, they had 5 sacks. The Ravens looked a lot better last week. A major part of it was Lamar Jackson was back, but some of it was probably that they're playing the Dolphins, but they're still an NFL team. But I think the Ravens are starting to get hot, and I have the Ravens winning and covering the 3.5 point spread. Then we have the 1-8 Saints versus the 5-4 Panthers. The Saints are coming off a 34-10 loss against the Rams, where Tyler Shuck made his first career start, and he went 15 of 24, 176 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Then Taysom Hill had 30 yards rushing, and Rashid Shaheed had 5 receptions for 68 yards. Then for the Panthers, they're coming off an upset win, 16-13 against the Packers, and they won on a 49-yard walk-off field goal. Overall, Bryce Young went 11 of 20, 102 yards, and an interception. Then Rico Dowdle had 130 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns, and Tedoroa McMillan had 4 receptions and 46 yards. And the Panthers are really hot right now. They've won 4 out of their last 5 games, and they've been extremely good at home, being 3-1. So I have the Panthers winning and covering the 4.5 point spread. Then we had the 3-5 Cardinals versus the 6-2 Seahawks, where the Cardinals are coming off a upset win, 27-17 against the Cowboys on Monday Night Football. And in that game, Jacoby Brissett went 21 of 31, 261 yards and 2 touchdowns, and also had a rushing touchdown. Then Emari Demercado had 79 yards rushing, and Marvin Harrison Jr. had 7 receptions, 96 yards and a touchdown. And on defense, they had 5 sacks and an interception. Then for the Seahawks, they're coming off a 38-14 win over the Commanders, where Sam Darnold went 21 of 24, 330 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. Then Kenneth Walker had 42 yards rushing. Then Jackson Smith and Jigba had 8 receptions for 129 yards. Then they just went out at the deadline and got Rashid Shaheed, and he's a great deep threat receiver, and this Seahawks team is looking very good. But the last few weeks, the Cardinals offense has been looking a lot better with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, and Kyler Murray is still questionable this week. But I have the Seahawks winning and the Cardinals covering the 6.5 point spread. Then we have the 5-3 Lions versus the 3-6 Commanders. In the Lions' loss against the Vikings, Jared Goff went 25 of 37, 284 yards and 2 touchdowns, but was sacked 5 times. Then they didn't have much of a run game, having just 20 carries for 65 yards as a team, and their leading rusher was David Montgomery with 40 yards and a touchdown. Then Sam Laporta had 6 receptions for 97 yards and a touchdown, and Amon-Ra St. Brown also had 97 yards. And on defense, they had 5 sacks, and Terrion Arnold got his first career interception. Then for the Commanders, they're coming off a blowout loss, 38-14 against the Seahawks on Sunday Night Football, and Jaden Daniels in this game went 16 of 22 with 153 yards and an interception, but late in the fourth quarter, when they were down 31, for some reason they still had him in the game, and when he got tackled, he ended up dislocating his elbow, and he's going to be out for a while. It's not necessarily going to be for the rest of the season, but he's going to be out a while. So I have the Lions winning and covering the 7.5 point spread. Then we have the 6-2 Rams versus the 6-3 49ers. In the Rams win against the Saints, Matt Stafford went 24 of 32, 281 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And he's already up to 21 touchdowns to just 2 interceptions. And he's definitely in the MVP conversation as well. Then Kyren Williams had 114 yards rushing and a touchdown. And Puka Nacua had 7 receptions, 95 yards and a touchdown. But he is questionable this week with a rib injury. Then in the 49ers win against the Giants, Mac Jones went 19 of 24, 235 yards and 2 touchdowns. Then Christian McCaffrey had 106 rushing yards and a touchdown and led the team with 5 receptions, 67 yards and a touchdown. And he's already up to 596 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns and 61 receptions, 626 yards and 4 touchdowns receiving. So it's crazy. He already has over 1,200 all-purpose yards and they still have another 8 games. This should be a pretty close game. Despite all the 49ers injuries, they've been playing really good this season. This week, the 49ers are at home and they are underdogs. I think they could make the upset, so I have the 49ers winning. Then on Sunday Night Football, we have the 5-3 Steelers versus the 6-3 Chargers. In the Steelers win against the Colts, Aaron Rodgers went 25 of 35, 203 yards and a touchdown. Then Jaylen Warren had 31 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. And Calvin Austin had 5 receptions for 56 yards. And on defense, they had 5 sacks and 3 interceptions, including one of them being by Jack Sawyer, their rookie defensive end. Then for the Chargers, they're coming off a 27-20 win against the Titans. Justin Herbert went 19 of 29, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception, and he led the team with 57 yards rushing and a touchdown. And Oronde Gadsden led the team again with 5 receptions and 68 yards, and he's just continuing to have an amazing rookie season. And on defense, they had 4 sacks and held the Titans to just 206 yards. But their left tackle, Joe Alt, had another high ankle sprain in the same ankle he did earlier in the year, and he's going to be out for the season after having ankle surgery. Overall, I think this is going to be a very close game, and I can see it going either way. So I have the Chargers winning, but I have the Steelers covering the 3.5 point spread. Then finally, on Monday Night Football, we have the 6-2 Eagles versus the 5-2-1 Packers. The Eagles are coming off their bye week, and in their last game in week 8, they beat the Giants 38-20, and during the bye week, they made a few trades by getting 2 corners with Jair Alexander and Michael Carter II. Then they got outside linebacker Jalen Phillips, so they got some good help on their defense. Then for the Packers, in their loss against the Panthers, Jordan Love went 26 of 37, 273 yards and an interception. Then Josh Jacobs had 87 yards and a touchdown, and Romeo Doubs led them with 7 receptions and 91 yards. But they did lose Tucker Kraft for the season with a torn ACL, so that's a massive hit to their offense. So far this season, he was their leading receiver with 489 yards and 6 touchdowns, and just was overall one of the best tight ends in the NFL this season. But this week, this is another great matchup between 2 great teams, but the Eagles are fully rested coming off their bye week, and they made those additions to their defense, so I have the Eagles winning. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. Goodbye.